What, after all, is self-awareness? Self-awareness is being aware of one's inner self, emotions and feelings. Normally, we are not even aware that we have a spiritual body in addition to our physical body. While we do nourish our physical body and make efforts to make ourselves look good and beautiful by wearing good clothes, treating our skin, our looks and so on, we normally tend to neglect the inner self. We do not pay attention to what is happening within ourselves. In this way, we forget to manage the most precious resource that we have, which is actually our own inner self or the soul within. We need to manage this resource to be able to lead a peaceful and purposeful life. Why we remain unaware of this resource is because we have mostly been taught to focus on the outer or physical world alone. Nobody ever asks us to direct our attention within. The way to manage oneself better is by becoming self-aware. Normally, we are not aware of the accumulation of pain, trauma, sorrow, anger and other negative emotions within us. Now the question that arises is, how do we reduce accumulation of all such negative emotions? First, we have to be able to acknowledge that these negative emotions are indeed within us. The way to get rid of them or reduce their accumulation is by acknowledging their presence first. We can learn then to resolve them through awareness. Our mind can then become peaceful and happy. Why does self-awareness really matter? Being unaware is being ignorant. Too much ignorance of the self leads to excessive attachments to possessions and belongings. We have to pass through a process whereby we can come to the realization that we are essentially spiritual. We constantly seek wealth, position, status and so on, things that never seem to really satisfy us. But what we really need is spiritual nourishment. Now, how can we achieve self-awareness? That is the question. The process of self-awareness really starts with the body. The perception of body starts from the outer surface and goes beyond the body into the area of pure awareness. That is our soul. This soul or the spirit is the same in all beings. This spirit is peaceful, blissful, powerful and happy. The process of breathing can connect us to our inner self, our soul. The breath simply comes and goes. Even if we want to hold on to it, we cannot really do so. You will notice that we cannot retain any breath, however much we may try. Similarly, each thought comes and goes. So when we begin a process of observing our mind or our thoughts, we will find that negative sensations, thoughts and emotions will simply lose their hold over us. In other words, the field of our conscious awareness will gradually become free from extreme feelings and emotions. This also amounts to purifying our inner self, an essential condition of becoming aware of the soul. When we sit in contemplation and reflection, we gradually become devoid of any thoughts. We can then realize the spiritual aspect of the body. The key to self-awareness is by understanding the mind. In the next episode, we will talk about the mind. What is mind? How is it different from the brain? How does the mind govern? Can we control the mind? Can we train it to do certain things? And so on. The Western world locates the mind inside the brain. They do not look at the mind outside the brain. But the fact is that even if we remove most of the external body parts, still the mind will continue to function unless a force destroys vital organs like the heart, the kidneys, the liver, and the brain itself. It comprises of the intellect, ego, and a host of memories. All these reside in the unseen body or the subtle body. What, after all, is mind? Mind is not a tangible organ. It is only a term used to describe a series of thoughts. Naturally, it follows that if we have no thoughts, then it is a state of no mind. We need to understand that the quality of our life depends on the quantity, velocity, and the quality of our thoughts. Mind is an energy. Mind is an energy field filled with thoughts, ideas, emotions, and feelings. It is said that human life is nothing but a struggle to learn to control the mind. If we could accomplish this, we would have accomplished the most difficult thing in the entire universe. But is it not strange that throughout our lives we are not taught anything about the mind, with which we have to live our whole life? Unable to be in the present, the mind is always either in the past or in the future, always regretting what is past and anxious about the future. Can the mind be cultivated? That is the next question. The mind is indeed a powerful tool residing within the body. It is a potential and powerful force of the human spirit. Its capacity to create its own misery is indeed phenomenal. But with some training, it could be trained to achieve balance. For instance, if a person is betrayed by another person, the person who is betrayed would start thinking of this happening as if it is the end of the world. This thought or hurt will go on in cyclical circles 100 or even 1,000 times. So while what happened occurred only once, but its repeated performance in the mind would become 1,000-fold, thereby creating enormous misery. Also, several times we start reading too much meaning in people's almost innocent actions and thereby create our own suffering by attaching more meaning to normal events. The mind tends to develop attachments to people, things, and situations. Like if in some isolated situation, a person has behaved badly or created some harm to you, we may go on repeating it in our mind. So much so that we develop negative emotions resulting in feelings of aversion, negativity, resentment, and even hatred. The question then arises is that can the mind be made to react in ways that are equanimous and that it will not create suffering for itself? Actually, it certainly needs to be trained because it has within itself the capacity to suffer immensely. It can undergo enormous pain and sorrow when it gets agitated, but when it is calm and peaceful, it can revel in joy. When the mind gets agitated, it starts suffering from an excessive overload of poor quality thoughts. Poor quality thoughts interfere with the healthy regeneration of cells which keep dying and rejuvenating themselves. This is because unhealthy and unhappy thoughts depress the body functions owing to the shallow breathing that takes place, leading to lower intake of oxygen. Lower intake of oxygen depletes energy in the body and hinders the rejuvenation of the cells. These cells that keep dying and taking rebirth in the body. In other words, such thoughts certainly hinder the proper functioning of the body. The modern science is researching this subject, how the mind works, its potential and possibilities of modification by simply becoming aware of certain things and possibilities. Now a new science is emerging, that of psycho-spirituality. An important tool of spiritual science to train the mind is meditation. It is a tool to control and sharpen the restless and wayward mind, an art of going beyond thoughts. It is the art of looking at the mind objectively and see which of its mental contents are useful and which are not. When we reduce the quantity, intensity and velocity of thoughts, their quality starts to improve. For instance, if something extremely disturbing has happened during the day and you are unable to sleep in the night, then just try this experiment of taming the mind, which is keeping you awake and restless. Just get off the bed, sit on a chair, and just start to look at the thoughts. At first, they will come and strike you with rapid force, but gradually they will subside and will no longer be a source of agitation and disturbance. So how did this happen? This happened because by simply observing the thoughts objectively, they tend to lose their hold over us. They leave us alone. Once they leave us, they cannot trouble us anymore. Actually, what happens is that when we develop appropriate levels of focus and concentration, our energy that was focusing with intensity on just one aspect of our experience regains its balance and we again go back to sleep peacefully. We have now learned that the mind is a series of thoughts. Becoming self-aware means becoming aware of the contents of the mind. The contents of the mind are the thoughts. Quality of negative thoughts impact our functioning, but we are mostly unaware that our thoughts are impacting our physical body continuously. What thoughts to think, how to regulate the thoughts, and how to reduce their velocity and improve their quality is something that can be learned and cultivated through practice. What are thoughts? We can answer this question, but first we must know what are thoughts. Thoughts are a form of energy that affect our actions and physical body. They are created as a response to external situations and circumstances. Thoughts are at the root of our feelings and emotions. On the one hand, we have positive thoughts, thoughts of optimism and energy, hope and positive outcome. These are powerful thoughts. On the other hand, there are negative thoughts of failure, fear, desperation, suicidal thoughts, pessimism thoughts, and so on. Thoughts create feelings, feelings shape our attitude determines our actions, and actions performed repeatedly become a habit. Habits form part of our personality. They are our personality. Personality creates actions, and actions create our destiny. To create and change our destiny, we need to change our thoughts. For instance, supposing I have a tendency to think and interpret situations negatively, or I get upset if people do not agree with me. Naturally, this will make me irritated and angry. I will have an attitude of disdain and contempt for others. This attitude will form my personality and I will act accordingly. People will dislike and shirk me, and this will make me less productive. And this may also affect my earnings. Our world is created by our thoughts, the way we perceive it. The external world remains what it is. It is our reaction to that world and the thoughts that we create which determine the quality of our lives. The same situation can be interpreted by two people in two entirely different ways. For instance, if someone has cheated us in a business deal, then either we can become extremely bitter about it or keep on complaining to others about it. Another way is to accept that such kind of behavior is a part of human nature and that we have to take it in our stride rather than keep on thinking and worrying and ruminating about it. How do the thoughts affect the quality of our life? Thoughts, in fact, inhibit or promote the secretion of certain chemicals in the brain, like adrenaline, cortisol, and so on. These endocrine secretions are mostly from the hypothalamus region of the frontal lobe of the brain. When we think anxious thoughts, we can suffer from anxiety, and similarly with fearful thoughts, worrisome thoughts, and so on and so forth. Positive thoughts create happy hormones like endorphins. Negative and anxious thoughts, on the other hand, create cortisol, a harmful secretion which gets released. Why does self-awareness really matter? Being unaware is being ignorant. Too much ignorance of the self leads to excessive attachments to possessions and belongings. We have to pass through a process whereby we can come to the realization that we are essentially spiritual. We constantly seek wealth, position, status, and so on, things that never seem to really satisfy us. But what we really need is spiritual nourishment. Now, how can we achieve self-awareness? That is the question. The process of self-awareness really starts with the body. The perception of body starts from the outer surface and goes beyond the body into the area of pure awareness. That is our soul. This soul or the spirit is the same in all beings. This spirit is peaceful, blissful, powerful, and happy. The process of breathing can connect us to our inner self, our soul. The breath simply comes and goes. Even if we want to hold on to it, we cannot really do so. You will notice that we cannot retain any breath, however much we may try. Similarly, each thought comes and goes. Positive thoughts keep one calm, cool, contented, fearless, without worry, and just being happy. The information we take in has a deep impact on the thoughts we create. As the basis of all thought is information, we need to continuously feed ourselves positive information to create positive thoughts. Positive thinking entails accepting that whatever is happening for the best at this moment. It also means visualizing the best to happen, but accepting whatever happens and creating balanced thoughts irrespective of the outcome. We have to strive to keep ourselves strong and motivated in the present. If the present remains powerful and positive, the past will gradually get settled. This will brighten up our future interaction with the one who caused us any hurt. It is necessary, therefore, to clean our mind and create pure vibrations in our interactions with people who may have hurt us. For instance, if there is a person who has hurt our emotions by being rude, we may choose to think that he said something nasty, not out of spite, but maybe he had a fight with someone close to him. To remain stress-free and lead a stable life, we need to be aware of our thoughts. This is possible by merely observing them. The mind has a tendency to think negatively. It is mostly either in the past or in the future. It is seldom in the present. In the pursuit of daily life, our thoughts tend to get fragmented. Owing to this fragmentation, our energy gets depleted. This may result in a negative perception of situations. It is necessary, therefore, to try and create positive thoughts and also be aware of the quality of thoughts being generated. We are always at liberty to choose the thoughts we create and avoid thinking about problems in the past over which we have no control. We already know now that the nature of the human spirit is happy, blissful, and full of positivity. It is the external situations and circumstances that create a covering over this blissful self and create a covering of negativity. It is actually like a cloth over our awareness with which we need to keep cleaning our essential blissful self so that it shines forth in its original nature. This is, of course, easier said than done. But with regular practice, it will come naturally. By expanding your awareness through meditation, you can learn not to be overtly focused on daily irritants and negativities. By meditating and thereby becoming empty of thoughts through development of concentration, we can be focused on our natural blissful self. If we can reinforce positive thoughts in the morning, like I am a contented being, I am a powerful being, I am a blissful soul, I have ample energy and strength within me, etc., then the mental body will gradually become stronger and stronger. Negative thoughts creep in only when the mind is weak. It is only then that the negative forces tend to take over. But if you keep practicing every day, and if positivity becomes a part of one's mental makeup, then one can be in an elevated, positive state of mind almost continuously. There are two aspects of our existence. One is the physical body, and the other is the spirit or soul inside the body. This body is a subtle body, and indeed is so subtle that it cannot be seen. It is present in the form of an energy. It could therefore be called energy body. Consciousness, on the other hand, is the elementary awareness that you exist and how your existence will be continued. Every living being, from a single-celled amoeba to a complex multicellular human being, which is you, has this consciousness. Consciousness is the awareness of our and the world's existence as experienced through our five senses. Normally, we are aware and conscious only of our physical self, how good we are looking, how we can improve our looks, what comforts can we acquire, etc. That is all very well, but we need to shift this awareness to our spiritual self as well, as to how I am feeling, what I am thinking, what is my essential nature, how far am I going away from essential nature because of the external circumstances and situations. For instance, I may suffer from a trauma because there has been a loss in the family. Now I have the choice of either keep on ruminating as to what happened and generate negative feelings within, maybe repeatedly, or I have the choice of remembering my true, peaceful, powerful self and remain calm and unruffled. The question is, why at all do we require soul consciousness? Well, that is a good one. What, after all, is in it for us? Why do I need to understand this? The goal of human existence is to be peaceful and happy. We already know that the mind is a series of thoughts. These thoughts create emotions, and emotions create feelings. In other words, we are what we think. Through thinking, we can be peaceful and blissful, or we can be agitated and disturbed. This is because we keep forgetting our soul's true nature owing to external pressures and situations. We need to reinforce and retain our soul's original qualities of peace, bliss, and power. But in the rush of everyday life, we tend to lose sight of these essential qualities. We start moving away from our true nature, the nature of our soul, the soul that governs the state of our being. It naturally follows that we have to be continuously conscious and aware so that we prevent any damage to our body by entertaining thoughts that are not peaceful, disturbing, hateful, full of jealousy and other negativities. So to be peaceful and happy, it is necessary to be settled deeply in an awareness of our own blissful and powerful self. Now, how can we become conscious of our souls? That is the question. The only way we can realize that we have a soul is by becoming aware of it. Now, how do we become aware of it? We become aware by developing our awareness and in the process experiencing the power and the blissful nature of the soul through a process of being peaceful. For instance, if there is a pool of water and it is constantly moving in waves, then we cannot see our face in it. The water has to be still so that we can see our face. Similarly, our mind has to be still before we can feel and experience the power of the Spirit. To be able to have soul consciousness, we need purity of thoughts, meaning being free from any negative thoughts, feelings, or emotions. This is because the soul is essentially a kind of energy. When we have toxic thoughts, emotions, and feelings, that pure energy gets dimmed. It is as if there is a mirror and it has not been cleaned for a long time. So we need to clean it to be able to see our face clearly in it. Similarly, to be truly aware, we need to have a consciousness without negativities. When we are disturbed and agitated, you would notice that you have very low levels of energy. You somewhat feel helpless and unable to cope with the situations. You may feel angry and frustrated, but to be aware of the power and energy of the inner soul, it is certainly possible. The process is to concentrate, focus, stabilize ourselves, and observe our thoughts in a quiet state. Through this process, we can become free from useless thoughts, anxieties, tensions, and confusion. The only way to realize the existence of the soul is to experience it. When we have clutter in our mind of high velocity negative thoughts, our awareness will remain at a very gross level. We cannot experience the qualities of the soul if we are in an agitated and disturbed state. The soul can be perceived only through a peaceful mind. The body goes through a number of experiences through the day. Disturbance takes place mostly because of external circumstances, like somebody said something nasty to us, somebody did not wish us properly, and so on. So this will disturb us, and unless we have a deep connect within ourselves, we will keep on wallowing in a disturbed state for a very long time. So this means that when we entertain negative thoughts, then we are in a state of body consciousness. For instance, we are very much aware of our position, our status, and so on and so forth. And therefore, we get disturbed easily. One can realize that one has a soul by becoming conscious of it. This consciousness can come about only through a process of deep observation of yourself in a detached manner. When a person is able to reduce the thoughts, mental agitations and sensory experiences, then one can observe the presence of this energy within the body. Meditation is the best tool for developing soul consciousness. When consciousness expands in a state of meditative awareness, suffering gets reduced because the meditator no longer identifies himself very closely with the objects in the external world, situations, or persons. He can then acquire a certain degree of purity of consciousness. When he is no longer emotional in his thoughts about his possessions, positions, and relationships, naturally his suffering will stand reduced to that extent. With increased awareness through meditation, we can discover several thoughts lurking in the subconscious mind. These thoughts are there mostly without our being consciously aware of them. We are not aware of them. Some of these thoughts will be turbulent, or they will tend to rob us of our peace. Once we go on witnessing the domain of our awareness during meditation, the intensity of these trouble-causing thoughts will gradually dissolve into our consciousness. In this way, they will no longer trouble us because they will expand into the consciousness. Now that we have understood the subject of soul, the next question is, how do we benefit from being soul conscious? What is in it for me? The subject of the soul, also termed as the real self, as opposed to the physical gross body, is considered India's greatest contribution to human thought. When we understand and are able to experience soul consciousness, a lot of issues relating to human suffering and human condition in this world and our experience in this world get automatically resolved. The soul has no form. It is larger than the physical body. It can reach out to others, connect with them, and use it to achieve life's larger objectives like peace, love, and stability. Mostly, human beings seek happiness and contentment from the external world. But in the process, we tend to remain unaware of the soul within us, which is actually a reservoir of bliss and happiness. It is an energy within all of us. It can be tapped depending on our skills and discipline to do so. The essential nature and quality of the soul, as we have learned, is that it is powerful, blissful, and happy. Dimensions of the soul includes its potential to withstand suffering, overcome adversity, tap its hidden talents and reservoir of energy, pursue things with persistent resolve, capacity to soar and achieve through sheer determination and willpower. We can experience this power in a deep meditative state through self-talk when we are absolutely peaceful and calm, undisturbed by external situations and circumstances. We have the ability to do this through meditation. In fact, we tend to keep on causing suffering and misery to ourselves by identifying with objects, situations, and relationships. But since they are in a state of constant change and flux, our identification with them causes us misery and unhappiness. The soul is an energy, and being an energy, it has no solid existence or substance. The energy in the world has also the same characteristics. So the soul or the Atman really remains physically untouched by events taking place in the temporary world. Happenings in dreams or dream state are unreal and temporary. One does not really get affected by one's dream, even though one may get slightly disturbed. Isn't that right? Similarly, if life can be taken as or perceived as an extended dream, then one will know and understand that actually speaking, one does not really get affected by the occurrences in one's daily life. If one can understand that at the level of the Atman or the soul, we are really not getting affected, even by the most disturbing or tragic circumstances, this perception of reality or understanding life from this perspective will empower us not to get mentally or emotionally affected. One can stay in an undisturbed state of mental and emotional equilibrium. Why do we need to be soul conscious? When we go through our experience in this world and when we have only body consciousness, even a small problem appears to be a very big one. But when we become aware of the soul, we can see the same problem as a very insignificant one. In other words, when we realize that the soul is very much larger than our small pains, diseases, physical losses, etc., our worries could get reduced accordingly. If we continuously observe our soul as if it is separate from ourselves, it would free us from identifying with the body and the mind and their attachments, fears, problems, and sufferings. We can also choose to adopt a positive mental attitude towards any situation because we are then linked with something which has a huge power and presence even though it cannot be seen. Once we are aware of the soul, by tuning our awareness or consciousness to the realization of its existence, we can then, actually at will, withdraw from our physical or emotional sufferings by diverting our attention to the essential nature of the spirit. We can also withdraw from any negative situation and keep our inner self peaceful and powerful, keep it protected from undergoing any emotional pain, suffering, or trauma. We can also draw on the vast potential energy of our soul so as to empower ourselves to cope with any situation whatsoever. Normally, energy of the soul remains latent and untapped within us. We can tap it only if we train our mind to become concentrated and focused. To empower ourselves, one can also cultivate the practice of being a detached observer. The observer will be the soul, but the soul functions just like a camcorder only. Like a camcorder, it remains unaffected by the happenings of the world. Naturally, when we remain unaffected, then we are able to move through life with as less suffering as possible.